While this hasn't been a successful season on the field for the Orioles, they are certainly trying to make some changes behind the scenes, specifically with fan experience. But are they making the right decisions? We'll talk about that with Kyle Goon of the Baltimore Banner coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Thursday, August 21st, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I am your host, Connor Newcomb, and today I am joined by Kyle Goon. He is a sports columnist over at the Baltimore Banner, covering the Orioles, the Ravens, and kind of everything in between when it comes to Maryland sports. And he's written a lot about kind of the Orioles' new season ticket approach, things going on around the ballpark, which we're going to get to today. But first of all, Kyle, welcome for your first appearance on the Locked On Orioles podcast.
What's up, Connor? Nice to be here. I was about to get in your grills. Like it's been too long. We've known each other a little too long, and it was getting a little uncomfortable, to be honest.
I was waiting for the big one to drop. I was like, there's definitely been some columns you've written this year that have certainly got the people riled up, not as having to do with the Orioles, but now that you write the Orioles column that I think got what I will say as someone who subscribes to the Baltimore Banner and sometimes unfortunately also reads the comments after reading the articles, I will say your couple of columns about the Orioles changes to the season ticket approach has kind of united the comment section, I think, more than other things that are written in a way that is everyone seems to be mad. So let's kind of start there. The Orioles previously, in terms of those who hold season tickets, there were flex plans, which still exist when you can kind of pick and choose some games. But if you were going to get a set number of games, it was generally set at 13 games or 29 games were the two more reasonable packages before you went for that entire, hey, I'm going to all 81 games. The O's have made the changes. Your new choices are 20 games, 40 games, or of course the 81 games, which is an up in commitment, an up in dollar amount. People are getting moved around. When you first saw the changes being made, I'm sure your first instinct was people are not going to like this. Let's see what they have to say. What do you think of the changes was from the people you talked to and what you covered was maybe had the biggest gripe from the fans? What things, I'll just say it frankly, pissed off the season ticket holders more than anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think the general gist is, before, the last three series, the team was doing really poorly. They hadn't called up their prospects. This is still a team that has not extended any other homegrown players since Adam Jones in 2012. And then you're being asked for more commitment, more money. And for a lot of people, the per game, seat cost has not gone up a tremendous amount. The Orioles say an average of 3%. For some people for some people it has, and they're just asking for more. They tried to kind of mitigate it by saying they have this sellback program. I would argue that's sort of a misnomer. You don't get any money back. So for the 20 games, you can sell back 6 tickets. For the 40 games, you can sell back 11 or 12 tickets. But the Orioles still keep the money. It's just roll forward into 2027. So people are getting the smell of, okay, this feels like a bit of a grift. The overall advantages, especially if you're a 29 game package holder, have just gone down. I mean, this year people weren't allowed to access club level if you're a 29 game package ticket holder. Everybody's gotten their alcohol discounts stripped. Just gradually the benefits have kind of gotten a little worse over the last 2 years, and yet the Orioles are asking for more. And so there's this general frustration. It's like, okay, what is all this money for? What is this added money for? And fans just have not liked it across the board pretty much.
And, the funny thing is you talk about the sellback program and it rolling over to just get different or more tickets in 2027. there are currently a whole lot of questions about what a 2027 Major League Baseball season will look like. The current CBA expires after 2026. We've already seen, we're not even at the end of 2025 yet. We've already seen a lot of signs pointing to the owners are going to lock out the players again. Last time this happened, they got a full season in. I think there's more worries this time around. So if you have a season that's 130 games instead of 162 because of that, and you now have this buyback program, you might just be losing money altogether. I mean, they're going to roll it all the way over to 2028. I mean, things just continue to snowball there. The other thing you talked about was those perks. And that's where, for some fans, they look at this and say, I was never really in the area of having a season ticket plan, whether it was for financials, I'm too far away from the ballpark. For me, it's 2 to 3 Orioles games a year. That's what I could get to. So maybe the changes from the 13 to the 20 games doesn't hit them as hard, but I think they still feel for the fans who are going through that, and also look around at what's been changing in the ballpark itself, and things with fan experience are going on. But really the biggest hit is this isn't a one-to-one factor here. This isn't really causation. Some fans think it is that, if they raise payroll, they're going to have to raise ticket prices. Generally, that's not really how the economics work. But if you do raise payroll, as an owner, it kind of gives you an opening to raise ticket prices a little bit because A, some people think that's how it works. And B, if you really spend on your team, fans are going to be more likely to give you their money to come watch that team. And that's got to be the other big thing here. Whether you're a 29 game holder or you go to 2 games a year, if this team is not going to spend, yes, did David Rubenstein increase payroll last offseason? He absolutely did. It was so minuscule, though, that even the increase they didn't allocate any long-term money to have these young stars really stick around for this team. So, it was written some in your columns, and I've heard it a lot from many fans. Why are we now investing more in terms of money per game and games we're going to if that investment is not coming back the other way? That seems to be one of the other big sentiments.
Yeah, I mean, and basically, if you kind of do the bait and switch of like, okay, well, you can't do this package anymore. And I mean, we're talking about a lot of legacy fans. We're talking about a lot of people who have been, season ticket holders for, 13, 14, 15 years, or some people in the case since Camden Yards opened. And, if you start doing the bait and switch, if you start saying, okay, we're going to take the 29 from you, give you 40. And then also, I mean, a bunch of those people in those who have had these like nice seats for a long time are getting booted from those seats and told, okay, well, this is for, 81 game season ticket holders, of which, I mean, is there some amazing huge rush of 81 game ticket holders that are just flooding in to get these more expensive seats? I don't know. I mean, I guess that's a question for the Orioles. But then you start getting the grousing about every other thing that people perceive is wrong with the franchise. And the number one thing in terms of spending money is, why isn't Gunnar Henderson on a long-term deal? Why isn't Adley Rutschman on a long-term deal? As of late, why isn't Trevor Rogers on a long-term deal? A guy who's just making his debut, Samuel Basayo, why isn't he on a long-term deal? And, people who really go to these games a lot, pay attention to this stuff. I mean, this was all happening right after the Red Sox locked up Roman Anthony for a long time. They're like, look, another guy, a rival is spending money on their young guys. And just, I mean, basically everyone who's come through Camden Yards since this ticket push started, you can kind of point to, okay, well, here's their long-term guy. Here's their long-term guy. And the Orioles don't have anybody. They've just chose to go through the team control process, arbitration process. And even though, obviously Gunnar, Jackson Holliday, represented by Scott Boras, that's a tough sled. But somebody, like lock down somebody. You can't just wait for everyone to feel good about the long-term deal. Sometimes you just got to get the guy. And I think, when you poke the Orioles fans from one side, which is their wallet, they look at the field and are like, well, why am I going to pay more when the team owners won't pay more for the guys I love to be Orioles forever? I mean, this is a franchise of Brooks Robinson. This is a franchise of Cal Ripken. People want those guys to be Orioles as long as they can be. And it's kind of, I know one's not really connected to the other. Like the business side, the ticket side is not really connected to baseball operations, but it's all one experience for everybody. So they start getting mad when they think about, oh, you're hitting me here, but you're also hitting me there.
And that is where messaging can come in big. And coming up next, we're going to take a quick break here. We're going to talk about that messaging too, because you can do things that aren't 100% benefit to the fans, but if you message well and you give people options, it can go out a lot smoother. And that seemed to be another issue, which we'll talk about with Kyle Goon coming up right after this. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth. Not all of us are David Rubenstein, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings you your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. And Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. And for me, Monarch has been great because, I'm reviewing finances, sharing money, joint accounts with my wife, and now we can both see budgets, goals, and spending activity in one place. So don't let the financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. So we are back here with Kyle Goon, sports columnist at the Baltimore Banner, who's been covering the story over the past couple of weeks of the Orioles changing their kind of entire system when it comes to season tickets. And we're here talking a little bit deeper about just the entirety of the fan experience. And Kyle, in your latest column, which came out at the Baltimore Banner, let me get a date here. This was about a week ago, August 14th. Kyle Goon, baffling ticket changes show Orioles don't understand their own fans. And that is the other issue here, where you can do a version of this if you message it correctly and you get the fans on board beforehand, especially those who are already paying for 29 games or maybe already paying for 81 games, are already Birdland members, have had seats for a while. You can poll them, you can see what might work best, and then you can move forward. It seems like from some of the fans you talk to for some of your pieces, not as much of that happened. And when people feel like they've invested in this team and they don't get communicated with either, that makes the situation even worse.
Yeah, and I'll start by saying the Orioles did do a fan survey, and I think that was released back in April. And I do remember seeing some of the concepts that they were testing. I think part of this is the fans don't feel like this is heard. A lot of the changes that they've heard about are like the premium seating area in the current, the current press box behind home plate. Okay, who's got money for that? A couple $100 per seats for tickets. And I think what's really lacking in the rollout, well, one, I mean, there's been a customer service issue where people have gotten notice, hey, you have to change your package. You have to up your package to 81. You have to up your package to 40 to stay in your seats that you've stayed in for several years. Or, you're going to have to select new seats in 48 hours, or you're going to have to select new seats in 5 days. And it's been those short periods. And I think there's like maybe a principle of salesmanship that's like, okay, if you put people in these pressurized decisions, maybe they'll spring and they'll buy, and they'll kind of let their emotions kind of speak for, what makes economic sense. But people didn't like that. I mean, other people have just emailed me and been like, I'm giving up my package because I don't like the way that they've done this. But I think also something that's lacking is just this sense of a long-term strategy. And I actually don't think that it's not that the Orioles don't have a long-term strategy. I mean, I actually, Katie Griggs, who's over business ops for the Orioles, she did some similar stuff in Seattle and, got them an all-star game. And I think what the Orioles are trying to angle to do in some of their renovations is make a stadium that can host the MLB All-Star Game again, probably in 2029 or 2030. But that vision is not being shared with the fans. I have, you mentioned the latest column I did. I have, an anecdote to start that column where there's a fan, Brian Moran, who was sitting in a front row seat, had an 81 game plan, this year, and was told, okay, if you want to continue sitting in those seats, your plan will go from 22,000 for your two seats to 34,000 for your two seats. So that's a 55% increase. He's like, what the hell? Like, this is an ambush. Like, and it kind of defeats what the Orioles are saying, which is we're moving people out so they can have full game plans, right? This guy has a full game plan, wants to continue sitting in his seats. So the Orioles tell him, okay, move over literally one section, like literally 5 feet here, from here to here, and we will drop your 2-game ticket prices to 12,500. And so, like, why is moving 5 feet worth $22,000? And we asked the Orioles this. They say it's due to anticipated market demand. That smells really, really funny. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, yes, the Section 56 front row seats are going to be $22,000 more than Section 58 front row seats. Like, that makes no sense. So if they are kind of trying to clear those spaces for premium seating for renovation, why don't they just say that? Like, why don't they just come straight forward and say, we're going to do this. We're going to change these aspects of Camden Yards from Section 56 on across, behind that home plate section. We're going to change that, and we're trying to move people out so we can change that, so we can host an All-Star game. And I think if they had actual transparency, they've said they're trying to have transparency. I think if they actually had transparency, people would be a little bit more accepting. I don't think everyone would be fine with it, but I think people would sort of start to understand, here's the vision, here's what they're trying to do. This is not maybe fan friendly, but at least it's straightforward. But they're not being straightforward. They're not telling people the plans. They're moving, half season ticket holders. They're moving full season ticket holders. So really, what are all these seats for if you're moving both those groups? I wish that they would just be straightforward in a way that could probably be a little bit more acceptable to the fans.
Yeah, and the part that I think most fans know is happening, that the Orioles have been straightforward about, because every single game now has a little ad read from KB and Ben about it, is, hey, we're putting this, behind home plate club section you talked about. It's going to move the press box, or the press box is going to move, I can't remember, to the right or left, but because of that, it's going to take out some seats. That's the one where I think generally people know. So if you're in those couple of sections, you probably had some knowledge that, okay, something was going to happen. But if you're up there, like Brian, you're talking about, I mean, what happens if he calls their bluff and he says, actually, I just got a huge raise at work this year, so yeah, I'm gonna pay the $34,000. Like, are those seats going to even exist? Do they have to come back to him and say, no, actually, sorry, you got us? It's and of course he made the probably decision of, well, I'm going to save $22,000 and just move slightly over, but not everyone has to make that decision.
Yeah,
and again,
and there are people being moved right now, and we're talking about 300 level upper deck sections, row 2 in 332, and they're saying, ticket reps are saying these are now for 81 season game holders. Like, is there a world where we come back next month and people actually have to drop their deposits next month, and they say, actually, we didn't get an 81 season package, we didn't sell it for those seats, would you like those seats back? But you've already been through the angst of being relocated. Like, it's just,
you're already mad.
It's like they're making people walk the plank, and then I suspect that some of these will be walked back, unless there's some rush of 81 game ticket holders that maybe there's a wait list for better seats. I have no idea. And the Orioles have not been terribly forthcoming. I mean, as I mentioned in that second story, Katie Griggs, I asked to talk to Katie Griggs and did not get her. My colleague Andy Koska did talk to Katie Griggs for our first story about this before we started hearing back from fans. It's just, it feels like the Orioles, I don't know whether it's a bluff or what, but they're doing things that really make fans feel, ousted. And to me, if you were going to say, okay, we want you to buy 33% more tickets for games next year, you would want to do stuff that make fans feel like, you know what, this is going to be awesome. Or like it's going to have more perks, it's going to have more access, it's going to have, we're doing this, we're doing that, and they just don't do anything in sync. I mean, the only thing they have is the guaranteed giveaways, and that was had I think a $250 value this year. They offered it as a service this year, and people could pay 250 more bucks. Is that really, if you guarantee those next year, is that really such a great perk that people should feel awesome about upping their commitments from 13 to 20 games or 29 to 40? I don't think so. That's not what I've heard at all.
It's wild. And we talk about the 81 games too. Like, I know that a lot of that is, big companies, they buy the plan, they use it to take clients out. Like, this is no longer 2007. Like, business is not done the exact same way that it was. And so I think just there's less of a market for that. And I can't imagine with less of that. And then it's just hard to commit to 81 games, even if you got like a whole family, a friend group splitting them up, like you're in the movie Fever Pitch or something. Like, it is tough to split up all those games. Can't imagine there's this giant line of people waiting for that 81 game plan. But yeah, it's a wild ticket world out there. I hope and wish for the best for all those Orioles plan members. I've talked to some of my friends who do have those plans and are making different decisions. I have a 13 game plan friend who got 2 other friends in and is just going to bump to 20, and they're all going to split it. I have another who has the 13 and he's dropping. He's just saying, I'm not going to 20. Like, it's just not going to happen. And so I'm sure there's plenty out there as well. The ticket part of this is a lot of it. There's also the entire fan experience. So coming up next after another break, we're going to talk about the fan experience stuff inside the ballpark, outside of the tickets that the O's have certainly been changing throughout 2025, and what that means for this team, this ballpark, etc., moving forward. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends, it's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to push through your day, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. So whether it's 18 holes, whether it's a little mini golf, whether you're up late watching the O's hold on in 11 innings and you need a little energy boost, 5-Hour Energy is there. And for golf, it's all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. And now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the U.S. So tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. So Kyle Goon, the sports columnist over at the Baltimore Banner, is here with us. We're kind of talking about all the changes the Orioles have made, especially for season tickets, but also in fan experience, Kyle. And I've heard things here and there you see in the ballpark, right? They're making changes. Katie Griggs is a part of some of this coming in with the fan experience as well. We've seen the live hot dog race go from like a kind of a special thing to it's out there every day. And people love that. It's fun to watch them run around, and I don't have any problem with that change at all. There's been some big changes with like what goes on the video board, what's up there. There's going to be a new video board coming along with a new sound system with all the money the Orioles are going to be able to tap into here in the next couple of years for those stadium upgrades, with $600 million set aside in total for the Orioles eventually once they kind of get that ground lease underway and can really access all of that money. But there was something this week that made me want to push this conversation beyond just the tickets. You know, this team is not doing well. They're certainly playing better over the past couple of weeks. I think this is going to be an exciting series this weekend. Basayo, Beavers, you got the Astros in town. You know, Arias comes back. The Orioles can give him a little round of applause. They're playing much better. It's probably going to be a little bigger crowds than we would have initially thought a couple of weeks ago. But the Orioles, I just feel like, and whether it's marketing, whether it's tickets, whether it's PR, I mean, they brought in Mark Fine to kind of lead this whole marketing department. Guest splasher, yeah, it's fun sometimes. Frank the Tank, whom is a very I'll say it, annoying Mets fan on the internet. Let me say it again, Mets fan from Barstool, and we can leave out our personal thoughts about that place of work for another time. But
should we?
That is the big drive. We got a time constraint here on this one, Kyle. That'll be part 2 of our conversation. That'll be behind the paywall. I just felt like that was like the nail in the coffin of, do they in the warehouse, and I'm not talking about Mike Elias and Sig Mejdal and Eve Rosenbaum at this point. I'm talking about kind of the other side of things. Do they understand what the fans want at this point? Because I'm worried the people that Rubenstein and this group are bringing in don't really have that understanding.
Yeah, they almost had it. They almost had it with 21-31, which I think is going to be a great night. Personally, like, that brings back great memories. And I've realized recently that, when I kind of looked at the ages of people who wrote into me and DM'd me, I have this sort of millennial, elder millennial, geriatric millennial voice that lands with people who remember Cal Ripken as young folks and remember 21-31 as sort of a seminal baseball moment like I do. But Frank the Tank, first of all, I didn't know who that was. Second of all, the way I found out about it was because an angry fan DM'd me and was like, what the hell are these guys doing? Like, it just seems like a continuation. So that tells you 2 things right there. I had to look up this niche internet person who I don't know what his appeal is, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, from 24 hours of research. And then otherwise, the people who do know who he is are mad. It's just weird. And kind of building off what we were saying in the last segment of people should feel awesome about this commitment. Well, what's the way you can do that? You can up the perks. And I think one way they could do it, and I know this is probably difficult staffing wise this late in the season, you have Samuel Basayo, who, if you went to spring training this year, this guy's BPs are freaking epic. He is just ping-ponging those things out of the park. Bring back early access for Birdland members. Bring back, let Birdland members get in a little earlier and watch this guy just swing at baseballs and BP. That is something that I think people would love to see. And even 10 years ago, I kind of have some fond memories of that with Chris Davis, right? You could get in the ballpark early, you could watch Chris Davis hit BP. And I think Samuel Basayo is that kind of power guy. Why not have, we were talking, I think you and I were talking with a friend of ours who said, why not have standing room only complimentary tickets for people who already have tickets to the game? That would be fun. That would be cool. It would just pack the park. It was just ideas that make people just feel good. I mean, I had a friend who texted me the other day where he used some of his loyalty points to buy an experience where he was playing catch on the Camden Yards outfield with his daughter. And he said, more of this. And I'm sure if I could talk to him right now, he'd say less of Frank the Tank. It's just stuff that, think of stuff that is cool and do that stuff. I don't think it's that hard. I don't think it has to be that revolutionary. It's just make fans feel a part of this thing. And for so many years, they've taken it back. I mean, they took away early access during COVID, but they never brought it back. And a lot of people talked to me about that. A lot of people said, I would love to watch BP. I would love to sit in the flag court and watch Dylan Beavers and Samuel Basayo hit some baseballs. Why is that not the direction they're moving, instead of let's bring in some corny internet celebrity that people like myself have never even heard of?
And his whole bit is that he's a Mets fan. That's the base level of it too. Right. What are we? I got a lot of messages about, hey, of people who really know who he is, and they're like, his last 5 tweets have just been bashing Cedric Mullins. Okay, this is the guy.
Oh yeah, great start, by the way, guy.
The guest splasher. Anyway. The other thing we talked about too, Kyle, off the air, was the passes they've done for the last couple of years with August and September. You pay one price, you get standing room only tickets to every single game in August and September. It got people in that ballpark for the playoff chases. I get this is not a playoff chase, but you can get people in the ballpark, even more room for those people to move around in that park right now and get them that experience that makes them hopefully want to come back. I'm not sure they're doing that. They're still doing some cool stuff. And as you said, just do more of the cool stuff. I worry about what people like Mark Fine in that warehouse are doing and kind of crumbling the relationship that this team has had with the fans for years and years. And again, did David Rubenstein come in and has he still done a better job than John Angelos? I will still say yes, because there were some things John Angelos did publicly in the media. I've covered them plenty on this podcast. However, the big promise of Rubenstein was all this money he's bringing in is going to be spent in free agency, spent on keeping this team together. Hasn't really happened so far. Now, this is going to be a gigantic offseason for this front office, and I'm not going to fully judge them on that front until we get to spring training of next year. I'm going to give them that space. However, I think the biggest fallback that we heard as soon as Rubenstein bought the team was he comes from, number one, first and foremost, this private equity background. And generally, what private equity does to companies, they come in, they strip it down, and they look to make a profit over anything else. And while Rubenstein said all the right things when he bought the team about not doing that and being from Baltimore and being invested, he hasn't shown that yet. And that is kind of the entire trickle down of this, which certainly worries me. Now, I know Kyle has many thoughts about that, and I'm sure he's going to continue to write about them in the Baltimore Banner. Kyle, thank you for joining. Where can people find your work as you continue to cover the Orioles? And obviously a lot of Ravens coverage starts to light up for you here soon as well.
Yeah, actually, recent change on that. As of Tuesday night, we are thebanner.com. We are no longer just the BaltimoreBanner.com. We are thebanner.com. And as you guys may know, we're expanding to Montgomery County. But yeah, I'm at thebanner.com in the sports section, at Kyle Goon on Twitter, at Kyle Goon, something blue sky, all those things. I'm on all the social medias, unfortunately. But fortunate for you guys, maybe not. I don't know. I'm around. I'm saying I'm available.
Makes it easier to find Kyle's work as well over at the Baltimore Banner. That'll do it for today's episode. We are back tomorrow for a Friday show, recapping game one between the Orioles and the Astros, the Basayo and Beavers home debut tonight. And of course, we talk about the unfortunate injury news. It feels like that's every episode of this season. Felix Bautista may be gone for all of 2026. We'll talk about what that means for the Orioles and why they may have to go get a true closer again in free agency this offseason. That's on tomorrow's episode, though. Until then, that's Kyle Goon. I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.